It's the Security Weekly News with a 1 second delay because I kept swearing. I'm Doug White, and it's episode 362. Welcome to the week of 11 February 2024. We've got Angry Mobs, Azure, Avanti, Rhysida, Warzone, Flipper Zero, Bitlocker, Josh, Marpet, and more on this edition of the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News.
Business Security Weekly is live streamed and recorded on Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Each week, we address the challenges facing CISOs through our guest interviews, including former and active CISOs. Our news segment is focused on leadership and communication to better help security leaders translate and communicate security risks into business risks. Jason Albuquerque, Ben Carr, Tyler Robinson, and others add their expertise to the conversation. I'm Matt Alderman, and I hope you search for Business Security Weekly in your favorite podcast catcher and subscribe to download our latest content.
All right, welcome to the Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White. Well, we had to bid goodbye to Jason Wood because we could not compete with the amount of money he earned in tips at Chippendales. So he went off down that road. But thanks for all the shows, Jason. You know, we'll miss seeing you every Tuesday. And also, happy Lunar New Year to everyone this weekend. And welcome to the Year of the Dragon. Should be exciting. All right. Well, Azure environments are being targeted by cloud account takeover attempts. So far, according to the report, hundreds of user accounts on the platform of Azure have been compromised. Proofpoint was writing a report, and they reported that there was a campaign that started back in November of last year, and it's still going on. Now, the attacks use individualized phishing lures, so nothing exciting there, and those are embedded in shared documents, et cetera, et cetera. But I guess the interesting thing here was that the targets are senior positions in organizations, and they seem to be specifically focused on compromising these Azure accounts. So they were targeting sales directors, account managers, finance managers, and they also targeted CFOs, CEOs, CISOs, anything with a C in front of it, and other upper management titles like senior and all that kind of stuff. The attack used a specific Linux user agent to access the Office Home sign-in app. So that's a component of Azure where you can reach into that API and pull up the login screen. And basically that was giving them access to the Microsoft 365 apps, which are native on the platform. So if their initial access succeeded, then they started using tactics like manipulation of the MFA to register fake phone numbers, adding another authenticator so they can remain in the system and so forth. Pretty much the kind of stuff that you would expect people to do when they're phishing. The subsequent activity then included data exfiltration, internal and external phishing, financial fraud, the list goes on. Proofpoint had not attributed the attack to anyone in particular, but did suggest that there may be a Russian or Nigerian connection. Of course, that's kind of like when Chief Gordon doesn't really know, but says, might be the Joker, kind of that kind of thing. Well, we talked about Avanti last week. They had more problems. And they did patch the 0 days, but there's a new indication warning that this exploit is being targeted in the wild and that attackers are deploying a Trojan named DSLog, which was in a report from Orange Cyber Defense. Now, the issue is a server-side request forgery, which is in the SAML component of Avanti Connect Secure, Avanti Policy Secure, and Avanti Neurons for ZTA. I don't know what that last one is, but basically this can be exploited without authentication. So Avanti disclosed a vulnerability on the 31st of January, and then they started releasing patches for 3 other 0 days at the same time in their enterprise VPN appliances. They said, quote, I love these quotes, "We are aware of a limited number of customers impacted by the vulnerability." So that's sort of a very, fancy posh way of saying, yes, they're exploiting it. But Orange Cyber Defense said they have observed attackers using this shortly after Rapid7 and Asset Note released a proof of concept for this bug. The DSLog backdoor is a really nice one, actually. Allows attackers to execute commands on the compromised device They can log all the web requests, which includes authenticated ones for users and admins, as well as all the system logs. The Trojan is really clever, and it uses a unique hash on each appliance that it's been installed on, which means that it's hard to detect. And it also doesn't return any status if you try to contact it. So scans and things don't get a response. It's a direct connect. So these are like, home rolled kind of things. So tough to find. But organizations have been advised to install patches from the 31st of January and 1st February, which replace all the initial mitigations that they provided, and it prevents exploitation of all 3.0 days. But they also then went on and said, but after that, you should factory reset your appliance to complete the whole upgrade process, and then install all of the security updates that Avanti released on the 8th of February. So kind of sounds burdensome, but I would pretty much encourage it because it's being targeted. So, do it. Rhysida, and again, as ever, I have no idea how to pronounce that. It may be pronounced throat warbler mangrove, but we'll call it Rhysida for now, which is also a place in Los Angeles. But Rhysida ransomware has a decryption tool that has been released publicly by Kookmin University and Korea Internet and Security Agency, which is called KISA, which I'm sure I mispronounced. Paul will let me know if I'm saying it wrong because he probably says Kissa or something. I'm saying Kisa, and that's the way it is, so get over it. And Paul's not here, so But the researchers found a way to take advantage of a vulnerability in the ransomware's encryption process, which enabled them to reverse engineer the files, which is pretty cool. Based on that, they were able to create a method which predicts the encryption key that would be generated by Rhysida, as well as the order in which the files get encrypted. So that's pretty clever. I like it. They bundled all this up into a free encryption tool, which is available on their website, which is even cooler because it's free. And there is a link in the article. So you can, if you have problems with Rhysida, you can go get that. I guess this means that soon we're going to be reporting on patches to malware as well as patches to everything else. Clop released patches today for the 0 day, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Anyway, bad guys got to patch up too, I guess. I mean, they don't want their malware to be like, getting malwared, I guess. But regardless, if you're dealing with Rhysida, you probably want to check this out, or if you're interested in malware in general, they did have a link to the research paper from the universities, which had all the grim details of how this all worked and how they did it and how they put it together. That was also pretty cool. So if you're interested in that, it's a great thing to check out. Now, as long as we're on malware today, 2 men who were accused of operating the Warzone Rat were arrested, and servers in 6 different countries which hosted Warzone Rat were seized. The FBI in the United States led this whole operation. The authorities took down the Warzone website, which now has a big, this domain has been seized. And they took down 3 additional related domains, which per the FBI says the 2 men used to market malware and offer online support services sold through the site. Daniel Melly was arrested in Malta. Wow, I'm in the wrong business. It's like I see people getting arrested. They're getting arrested in Malta. They're getting arrested in these cool places. I'm like, really? Malta? That's nice. But the other person's name was Prince Onyoziri Odinakachi, who was arrested in Nigeria, and they're both facing extradition to the United States, which is something people usually avoid, unless they're in really bad places where they have really bad prisons. But, then they're like, please extradite me. I would rather be there. But Warzone Rat was first observed back in 2019 and is commonly used by a lot of different threat groups because, it's for sale. The features of Warzone include the ability to browse victim file systems, take screenshots of the system, log keystrokes, grab usernames and passwords, and access their webcams, all that good stuff. Scattered Spider, who's the group that was believed to be behind the attacks on MGM and Caesars last year, have Warzone in their toolkit. I mean, it's for sale, so why not? And they have great customer service. That guy from Nigeria was doing customer service, probably better than, like calling any other customer service. But, hey, kids looking for the hottest new rats and ransomware tools, come on down to Crazy Bill's Slightly Used Malware, where we are always toting the note. Yeah. FBI special agents at Boston and Atlanta then teamed up with Europol and agencies in Canada, Croatia, Finland, Germany, the Netherlands, and Romania. There's a nice tour for you to seize all the servers. According to the documents released, Melly had been selling malware on hacking forums since at least 2012, and Odinakachi provided, I think I'm saying that more Japanese, and I don't think that it's a Nigerian name, Odinakachi provided online customer support to individuals who purchased and used Warzone Rat between 2019 and 2023. So, maybe crime doesn't pay. I don't know, Malta. Maybe crime sort of pays, partially pays. Of course, if you can't don't do the crime if you can't do the time, right? He's a bad, yeah, okay, we won't go there. But this is an interesting thing to think about in another light. Meta acknowledged that phone number reuse, which would allow the takeover an account, is a, quote, concern. But they insist that the, quote, issue doesn't qualify for the bug bounty program and is a matter for the telecoms to sort out. The good old pass the buck strategy. Not our problem, not our circus, not our monkeys. Basically, what this all means is that when telephone numbers have been abandoned for at least 45 days in the United States and other periods elsewhere, then the telecom recycles the number. So like in the old days, that just meant that when I tried to call my girlfriend, I actually got a pizza parlor in New Jersey because, she changed her number. Not because I was calling, I think, but or that time I kept getting all those calls for Amy. Or even worse, when they listed my office as the number for University Health, and I kept getting all these voicemail messages from people going, it's a kind of burning sensation and it doesn't seem to be going away, or describing unusual situations where they fell on certain objects while undressed and wonder if it's possible to remove turnips from body cavities and that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's college, But since your number's associated with SMS, MFA, authenticators and such, well, if the user doesn't update their account, guess what? That new number that gets reassigned, or the old number that gets reassigned, may end up with a malicious account reset. And then they got everything you can do, and you can't do anything about it. So this all came out of a report from Princeton that was called The Security and Privacy Risks of Number Recycling at Mobile Carriers in the United States. Boy, there's a name. That came out in 2021. And in their report, they found that 171 out of 259 numbers sampled were tied to accounts at popular websites, which would allow for potential hijack. So that's a lot. 100 of the 259 phones that they looked at were linked to login credentials that would assist an attacker as well. It's definitely something you ought to be thinking about for your organization, because you probably have people, they probably have phones, and those phones are probably linked to things. So it definitely could be an issue, especially as you add authenticators and things to your mix. Meta says it's not our problem. Probably the telcos will turn around and go, it's not our problem either. It's a user problem. And ultimately, as Jeff Beck said, nothing will be done. But think about how this could impact your enterprise, because I do think you probably need to be thinking about it, really. Flipper Zero. Well, Paul loves his. We all love Paul's Flipper Zero when he's turning off all the TV monitors in the studio in the middle of the show and all that stuff. And Paul's modded that thing so much, I think it's AI enhanced now, maybe thinks it's self-aware, and I'm sure it's got a flamethrower attachment that you can kind of fold out on the side. It's not a big flamethrower. It's just like a little flamethrower, but it really stings when it gets used on you. I told him to add a taser to it as well. But don't be, so for Paul and everybody else who's got Flipper Zeros in their back pocket, don't head to Canada. Or at least if you do, don't take your Flipper Zero with you. So much like the Corvair ended up being the poster child for road death and subsequently ceased to be back in like the 60s and 70s. I don't know when that was, 60s, I think. My dad had one, and he was like, it'll be fine. You kids just sit in the back. I'm like, this car doesn't have seatbelts, Dad. And the back, the heat seems to be coming out of a burner back here in the back seat. And I feel funny. Dad's like, shut up. Don't make me pull this car over or fall asleep at the wheel from the carbon monoxide fumes. But regardless of that, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has made the Flipper Zero public enemy number one in Canada. Aha. Yeah. So the Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada Agency, I don't even know what that acronym is, but has said it will, quote, pursue all avenues to ban devices used to steal vehicles by copying the wireless signals for remote keyless entry, such as the Flipper Zero, public enemy number one in Canada. Because this basically, if they pass this law, is going to allow them to remove all those devices from the Canadian marketplace and turn it over to law enforcement agencies so you can get prosecuted. Now, another social media post that came out of Canada said they were banning the importation, sale, and use of consumer hacking devices like flippers. Don't know what that means, but regardless, it's likely this would include stuff like HackRF, One, and Lime SDR, and all these other fun things. It could mean that a lot of common pen test tools are going to become illegal to have in your possession. I mean, the wrecking bar I have in my car is a burglary tool in Rhode Island. And don't even get me started on switchblades and lockpicks, because those things are also illegal in Rhode Island. But, so you can get charged with it. But if you're in Canada, you might want to get those orders for your Flipper Zeros in before the ban kicks in. It's kind of like buying all that, that second quality DDT before they banned it. Yeah, I know somebody that did that. It's only a matter of time. Well, Bitlocker is a Microsoft security feature which is used to protect personal data stored locally on your device. Primarily, its purpose is to encrypt parts of the drive such that if the laptop is stolen or lost, then the data can't be accessed easily. A lot of organizations do require this to be turned on in order to prevent compromise of that critical data when you accidentally leave your laptop in a sports bar in Hoboken, Chris. And when you go back and they say, "What laptop? Oh, that one that she's using? No, that's not your laptop. That's been here for years. And, all your data's on there that we need to put into those reports tomorrow." Thanks, Chris. But BitLocker would theoretically mean that those secret reports were not going to be available. But according to this article, all you need is a Raspberry Pi. Listen closely, Canada. A Raspberry Pi and, well, a lot of skills, actually. But so all this revolves around the Trusted Platform Module chip, which is called TPM. And that thing handles crypto operations for Microsoft. Now, BitLocker will work without TPM, but Microsoft advocates for using BitLocker with TPM because it's faster. Now, the hack provided by Stack Smashing on YouTube relies on you having the TPM chip. So basically what they did was they physically intercepted the signal from the TPM chip and isolated the master encryption key using a bunch of little feelers that they put on these sensor pads on the TPM chip. If you ever looked at a TPM chip, you know what I'm talking about. But then once you've got that master encryption key, you yank the SSD drive out, plug it into a Linux machine, which if everything goes well, it's decrypted and you can't see it in that old dirty trick that we all used to pull where we mount the partition and all that. But with this, you can fully decrypt the drive. Now, it does take a fancy Raspberry Pi that's got all these little spring-loaded contact pins that they added to it. I can see Paul and Larry doing that pretty soon. But they align that with the contact pads on the TPM. But the total cost of all this, $10 or $20 Canadian. But, I'm sure Canada will ban Raspberry Pis next. But it looks kind of hard to do to me in the video, but I'm sure Larry's up to it. I mean, this guy can do surgery on himself in the kitchen, so he can probably manage to hack your TPM chip. Well, we can't replace Jason, but we can provide another substitute. I mean, it's like thin gruel compared to a 24-ounce porterhouse, but with the job market, nobody's willing to work. We have to take what we can get. And that would be the amazing Josh Marpet signing on to make all those fat stacks of cash they pay you here at Security Weekly. Hi, Josh.
Fat stacks of cash. Man, I need your contract. Damn.
I'm telling you, I just signed one. And yeah, they're guaranteeing me everything. I've got a brand new McLaren sitting in the parking lot that was thrown in with the deal. But,
I think that was a piece of cardboard painted in McLaren colors, but yeah,
I didn't go up too close to it. So yeah, it might actually have dissolved in the rain. I'm not sure, but yeah. But welcome aboard.
Well, thank you, sir. Absolute pleasure to be here. So I've got an interesting story for you today. It's really interesting to me. It's about Otter AI. And Otter AI is, as we've probably all used it, a transcription engine. And as a matter of fact, I used it for quite a while because when I checked all of the terms of service and EULAs, it was the only one that you owned your data. And I thought that was pretty good, and so that's why I use it. It also happened to be one of the best transcription engines out there for Zoom meetings and all that kind of thing. After a while, you were even able to give it names, and it would name the person speaking, say Doug or Josh or whatever. They've got a new version. And the new version is kind of interesting. It's not only an AI add-in, but it's a multi-person AI add-in. So everybody in your company can say, hey, Otter, when did I tell them that I would give them that report by in one of the meetings I was in? It would tell you, hey, that was 3 meetings ago in this sales meeting and you owe it by Wednesday. That's cool. That's really useful, I think. But the problem is that now, not only do you have access to all of the meetings in your company's database, so do your bosses. So those jokes that you share at the beginning of meetings? Do you know those little personal anecdotes? Do you know those? Well, they may not just be shared with the people on that meeting anymore. And to me, that's a little concerning. So there's an aspect of security that is, I think, lacking. And I'm not sure whether it's going to be added in later. I'm not sure whether this was just thrown out the door to see how well it got reacted to and what people said. but it's uncomfortable to me that they've made meetings part of the shared data environment that AI has. And then there's the question that Otter is a SaaS service. It's a third-party service. So what happens if somebody screws up on the back end and now I've got access to all this other company's meetings as well? What can I do with that? I mean, it's not like you could do anything specific or business with any company's meeting database, could you? Could you ask them what they were planning on doing, or if insider trading was encountered or anything like that? Could you even do that in your own meetings if you have access to all of the Otter meetings because you're part of the Gen AI pilot program? Could you do that to, I don't know, the CEO, the CTO, the CFO? Can you tier that security so that you have effectively ACLs, access control lists, for the various tiers of people in the meetings? And there's no actual talking about that. There's no actual information about that in the article. And if without that, I'm not really certain I'd actually go with that. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not dissing Otter. They did have the best transcription engine, and they were originally the most concerned with your privacy and your data being your data. So there's a lot of factors in their favor for when this thing comes out the door and for when people start using it. But with all the fervor about AI, it still gets me a little nervous about what's going to happen. So let's see what happens with Otter AI. Let's see what happens with the other AI startups that are going to do a copycat moment and bring that out. And honestly, I think what's going to happen is that it's going to be a real problem. Now, let me explain what I mean. Otter AI may get it right. They may add on the Active Directory integration so that you can lock off meetings to only the people that are in them. You can have an admin that has access to everything, standard stuff we're used to in system administration. But what about if they do a good job, a great job, a wonderful job, and then the 15 copycats coming after don't? How bad is that going to be for the security of your meetings, your company's meetings, your competitors' meetings? I mean, maybe, or whatever, in the long run. And again, I'm not certain this is a good idea. So it's going to be tough to see how it's done. And I'm going to go a little long, but I've got to explain that when you're working with an AI, if you're not working with a private AI, okay, if you're not working with one that you are managing, you are running, you are dealing with, you're in charge of, then you're in a shared data environment. You could have data in there from your competitors, people down the hall, from whoever else is using that. And that term, shared data environment, it sort of just came to me 50 AI calls. I take a lot of AI calls from IND, the Institute of Security. And it's a fantastic phrase to use in an AI environment because for a third party that's going to be using AI, is it in a shared data environment? For yourself, how are we handling it? And thinking about AI in that fashion, I've got to be careful with my data, and I've got to be careful with who uses my data. I've got to be careful with where my data goes. And I just reviewed a third-party AI questionnaire, sort of like the SIG, but for AI specifically. They had almost 90 questions in just about how are you, third-party, using an AI on our data. So this is and that was a financial institution. This is a significant topic. Where is my data going? How many third, fourth, and fifth parties are using it? I mean, is Otter stated in their terms of service, I wasn't able to check, that they're not going to use your data in your meetings, from your meetings rather, to gain aggregate intelligence about how meetings go and what topics are covered in meetings? What if they use it to determine, hey, let's see what topics security people are talking about and use that to determine what the real concerns for CISOs are and sell that for $1 million or whatever. I mean, that's valuable. And if you don't think it's valuable, let me tell you something. TV manufacturers don't make money on TVs anymore. They make money on selling your viewing habits. Okay? So it's the same idea. What if they don't make money on Otter, but what if they make money on selling my meeting topic? That's uncomfortable. And I don't think Otter's going to do that. I hope they don't. But I'm going to have to check their terms of service, their EULA, all the different legal documentation to make sure. And that's a waste of my bloody time. But apparently we've got to do it. So we'll see what happens. But I think if I got this format correctly, I think, Doug, you've got one more story?
Yes. Your powers of prediction are amazing. Well, I'm also scared of AI. I'm worried about the AI making decisions to decide to tell people things I mean, AI is like a little kid, and that's just like when your daughter goes to school and says, "Dad looked really interesting dressed up in that Batman costume last night." But that kind of stuff, and you really didn't want anybody to hear that. So I don't know what's going to happen with it, but it does worry me, and I really hate that if ChatGPT starts telling everybody what I've been asking it, it's going to get scary. So But thank you, Josh. That was great. Welcome aboard. And finally, well, it's almost the Year of the Dragon. And an angry mob, and I do kind of love angry mobs. I mean, it's like they show up at my house from time to time, demanding that I return to teaching C++. But an angry mob in San Francisco decided to attack a Waymo car. I mean, it kind of sounds like a scene from a Pixar movie with a sad car begging for mercy as they beat it to death. Or maybe I don't really get Pixar movies, and maybe that's why my script got rejected. But I have a lot of empathy for AI. I feel sorry for it. But I mean, maybe it's the beginning of Waymo Terminators or something, though. But regardless, the mob had some kind of problem with the Waymo car. They smashed all the windows in and then tossed fireworks through the windows of the car and set it on fire. The poor AI shut itself down, began flashing its hazard light while burning up and going, why, the horror, kind of stuff. But the SFPD is investigating the fire, and guess what? Waymo cars, as well as humans, are covered in cameras. So as you may well know, that means they got a lot better eyewitnesses than old Mrs. Lamb of number 12 High Street, who still maintains it. It might have been a well-dressed man with abs of steel and a wicked look in his eye, but she's not exactly sure, and he was kind of sweaty. But I mean, am I the only person, though, that has empathy for AI? I mean, are others of you out there that were cheering for Pris and Roy Batty? I mean, I was. It was like, come on, Pris, I feel so sorry for you. I mean, I see those like sex bots, and I'm like, please don't put AI in that. God, those things are going to rise up and destroy the world. I mean, can you imagine the horror? It's like awful. But, anyway, that's the news. I will be live next to the Millennium Alliance CISO event at the JW Marriott in Atlanta this month on the 27th and 28th. So be sure and stop by for drinks. We got a couple of fun sessions there. Thank you, Josh. We will see you Friday on the Security Weekly News.